Alright, y'all boys, we back with another video. So today we are going to be essentially doing, I guess you can say, a tier list of the free-to-play recollections that are in the game, ones that you should be, keeping a lookout for, and what are high value and whether they're going to be good or not. So keep in mind, this is only going to be featuring free-to-play recollections, like recollections that you can get very easily, right? Even if it's gacha, like if they're like rares, they're going to be very easy to get, so there's not going to be any complaints whatsoever about that. So the reason why we're going to be doing this is because I noticed there's a lot of players who neglect a lot of the good free-to-play recollections, even selling them for standard tickets. I know a lot of people made that mistake in the beginning of the game. There was a couple of content creators who also did that, and I'm gonna just say it. If you got rid of your pride, because I know there was a couple people who got rid of their pride, they got like rid of the 2 extra copies because they were like, oh, I only need the passive. Well, you fucking griefed yourself, because that's extra stat that you could have had. I don't know why you would ever do that. If they add anything in the future that requires you to have 5, dupes, well, your account is literally griefed. You're not getting those shits back. So I just want to make it very clear: never ever sell your free-to-play recollections unless you have it maxed out already. Even though we can agree that 90% of the free-to-play recollections are bad, there are still a few hidden gems which like a lot of people don't know about. So you don't sell them, because you never know when somebody's going to create a new type of meta with a memory, and you won't be able to have that memory at, like, let's say it's a requirement or it's condition. Now let's essentially go through them, and I'll tell you why you should be using these free-to-play recollections. But the most important thing to note is that we're only taking a look at free-to-play recollections and a few of the gacha rare recollections, because they're essentially very easy to get. So first up, we have Pride. Pride has obviously its own tier because Pride is Pride. So you'll basically start off, you'll buff yourself, you have 60%. It'll last you, 2 times, and obviously an 8-turn duration. Then you'll wait 5 turns and then use Pride again, and that's going to get you another 60%. So you can have 2 60% curse damage increases with 2 activation times, meaning that you're going to have, it's not actually 120%, but you get what I'm trying to say here. Basically, you're going to have those 2 boosts, and whenever your character hits, it's going to use both of the activations from both of the buffs that you have active at the same time, meaning you're going to get that overall damage buff together all at once. So you can have higher burst potential, and this is very good for characters like, for example, Sukuna, who's on JP, because his second skill is a physical skill. You can just continuously spam that, and it won't use your pride because your pride is based off of curse damage. Then when you're actually ready to do damage, then all you have to do is use your skill 3 and then use your O, and you're gonna have that insane damage boost from those 2 activation times that are stacked for both of those turns. So yeah, Pride is by far the best memory in terms of damage dealing if you're doing like a ranking or something. Obviously, there's going to be situations where you have a character who doesn't have any skills to kind of like stall, or doesn't have any skills that are, physical. Then obviously Pride won't function as good as you want it to, because you'll end up proccing it all the time. So yeah. But yeah, Pride is obviously in a tier of its own. Now we're going to move on to Panda Maki. This is probably one of the best memories in the game in terms of charging your ult. You use it for characters like Domain Gojo, Domain Megami, characters that want to get to their ult relatively quickly. You're definitely going to be using this memory. It's also from Formidable Foe, just like the Pride, so you're going to be able to get it very easy. It's probably the easiest one, I'd say, of the 4 Formidable Foes, so you should have no problem obtaining it, and it's very nice just to be able to charge your ults rapidly. Next up, we are going to be, where is it? This one. So basically, I think this is a very recent one on global, so you want to make sure that you get this maxed out. This is probably the best blue support recollection in the game. It gives you 20% damage increase for blue characters, and then it gives you a permanent 10% damage increase from its passive. It's a must-have on mono blue teams, so you can still get it on global, so make sure you do play the event, because that shit is actually cracked, especially when Sukuna comes out and you're going to be using Inumaki with Sukuna. You're going to be dealing a ton of damage by using this memory, so make sure that you do pick this up and actually get it. Next up, we're going to have the Team Gojo memory. So this memory is very powerful. This is probably one of the better DPS recollections in terms of free-to-play, not counting Pride. It's not as strong as Pride, but it's been getting very popular due to its passive, which gives you a 20% curse damage increase for 3 turns when combo ulting. Next up, we have the Team Geto memory. So the Team Geto memory is also very strong, and I've been waiting for this one for a long time, because obviously Team Geto dropped and we didn't even have this memory yet. And this is probably Team Geto's best memory, like his best in slot memory. So it's basically a staple memory for characters who use combined damage. There's not really a better memory. Like, I mean, obviously you do have gacha recollections like Low Time or the Megami with the dogs. I think that one came out with the Nanami banner. but this one's free to play. It's very easy to get. You just do the event when it comes and you will obtain it, and it's very powerful, very strong. I use it on my Ghetto, I've used it on JP, I use it on Global. It's literally only that. Next up, we're going to move on to the next memory. So people probably might not know this, but Doctor's Turn has been getting very popular in the last few months on JP. It's a basic free-to-play support recollection, but what's unique about it is its effect duration. So it kind of gives you a 10% curse and physical damage increase for 3 turns, and then its passive, it gives you another 10% for 4 turns. So that's long form. It's very good for content that lasts for a long time. So it's another great alternative for those who don't have like Combo's Archery Lesson. All right, so next up we are going to have the rare memory, which is going to be this Miwo one. If you're not using this memory, you've been playing this game all wrong, and honestly, you probably should uninstall. This memory is insane for tower and EX battles. It's basically one of the best survival stall recollections in the game. You literally just slap it on a character, and you'll literally watch them tank two turns of hits for free. It's insane recollection. It's rare too, so it's easily accessible. And it basically puts all the other taunt recollections to shame. Now, obviously, if you're trying to use a memory that taunts for a longer duration and you actually want the character to die, then obviously you can use the UG one, which obviously we'll talk about that in a bit. Next up, we have the A rank. So first up, the A rank, we're gonna have the SO recollection. This has been a memory that people have had since like the beginning of the game. It's your standard damage support recollection. It's really good recollection, despite obviously we have other options. You can be used on a lot of your buffers, and it's literally strong. Now, obviously, there's another memory that we also received as well, which is called Sky. Let me see if I can find this one. And this is basically the SSR version of the SO recollection. And this was also free. We got it for the 5 million download celebration. It has better stats, but it's literally a 1-to-1 copy in terms of, the skill and everything. Right? So they're basically the same thing, except obviously this one's probably better because of stat. That's it. I mean, they're literally like very similar, so it doesn't really matter one or the other. Then next up we have, of course, Bonds of Cooperation, right? So let me see if I can find it. So this one right here. This memory is a very recent free-to-play recollection, which came with, I forgot who it came with, but it's your standard damage support recollection, just like SO and Sky is connected. But also provides conceal and evasion, which can be quite clutch in certain scenarios. So obviously you kind of want to decide if you want to use the memory in that situation, then it might be better than SO and Sky's connected. All right, so next up we have is Visit Fukuoka, or whatever it's called. Probably butchered the name, but it is what it is. So basically, it's one of the very few and better free-to-play heal recollections. Can be used in a lot of different situations, and it makes a great alternative if you don't have any of the gacha heal recollections like A Wish from the Past. You can use this one. I know there is some teams where you do a lot of free-to-play teams where you do stalls. This is one of the memories that you use inside that comp, although you do need some of the other gacha recollections to actually make those teams function, but it's still a very good memory whatsoever if you do need some heals. All right, so next up is Someone Like Me. So this is a very, I'd say it's a pretty good memory. I don't think people use it as much as they should. It's just a decent damage support recollection. It has a very long effect duration. It's a good alternative to a lot of the other supported damage recollections. So a lot of these ones that are here, you definitely can use alongside it if you need a little bit of extra damage, So if like you needed like, let's say three memories with support memories, then boom, there's your third one, things like that. I think it's pretty good. It's good to have like alternatives if you don't have any of the other ones, even though they're free to play. And you should have them if you been a long time player. All right, next up we are going to have the Mai and Nobara memory. It's a very underrated recollection. If you've seen a few of my showcases, I use it on ult rush teams a lot. It's kind of like a mini Unity / Domain Jogo recollection, but can also be very strong, maybe even stronger than Unity in longer battles like Potential Boss, because it increases your ultimate gauge recharge by 15% for all allies for 2 turns every time you perform a crit, and you can even stack it. It's active, gives you crit chance to make it even more consistent as well. So this is definitely an insane memory, and you use it on a character like Mai, who can attack with follow-ups. You're going to have more chances, more consistency in proccing that buff for your entire team. It starts to get really insane with how quickly you start charging your ults on those teams, especially if you're using characters like Red Yuji, who already charges his ult very rapidly, because he's also going to be using like-minded sisters. It starts to get out of hand, right? Because the red team started going crazy with charging ults. It's Utah fraud, by the way. All right, so next up we have Yuji, right? So this is one that I was talking about earlier. It's just a very good taunt recollection and used a lot in score boss or tower the stall and provide safety for your other characters in the team. Obviously, if you need complete safety, then you might want to use, of course, the Miwo one. But there's cases where I've used this to actually kill off one of my characters. Usually you use it on characters like on Rare Inumaki or Yuki who do their job on turn 1 or 2 with the ult charge or curse energy recovery and then die to bring the 5th character in so that way you can do your maximum damage output, stuff like that. That's literally for foolery like that. So I definitely a good memory. I mean, I already talked about it earlier, so let's just move on to the next memory. And the next memory, last but not least, in the A rank is going to be this one right here. It's going to be a source of stress, which is a very underrated recollection. I know I've been saying that about a lot of these, but that's because it's very true. A lot of these memories are kind of underrated. It's a stall recollection, and it can even be used to bring some survivability in some of the difficult stages by decreasing all allies damage received by 15% on its skill. But its primary focus is the passive, which also decreases enemies damage dealt by 15% if they are debuffed. Very easy. Obviously, it's not going to have use on bosses that can't be debuffed, but just keep that in mind when they are able to be debuffed. It's very powerful. A permanent 15% damage decrease with the correct character. I like to use it obviously on the main expansion Gojo with his skill 2, but that's just one way to utilize it. But it's very strong, very, very strong. And then last but not least, we are going to be in the useful, right? Ignore the D. I don't think we're going to be using the, I think we're only going to be going on useful, right? So the first useful is going to be this one right here. Not that it matters because we're going to be talking about each one of them. So these recollections are basically just honorable mentions. So we have the 2 who don't mesh, and it's a taunt memory for 1 turn, but with an active that decreases damage received by 100%. It's very interesting, and I'm sure we'll probably see more of its use in the future. So just keep this one in mind. It sounds very nice. We just haven't had a actual need for it just yet. Next up, we are going to have the next memory, which is going to be the Kyoto Students. This is also obtainable from Formidable Foes. It's a decent taunt recollection, although, like I mentioned earlier, the rare Miwa and the rare Yuji are probably more commonly used because they're more consistent and better, in my opinion. But keep in mind, all 3 of them are not all exactly the same, so all 3 have their own unique uses. So there might be a situation where you might actually use this memory over those 2. It's just very dependent on that. But I still think you can't really discredit its use just because there's other ones that do what it does better, or better in more situations. Better to say, right? Next up, we have, of course, Day of Awakenings. It could be a nice clutch recollection with his resurrection and also a decent DPS recollection. Decent, by the way, decent. Nothing too crazy, so you get some value out of it, not too much. Next up, we have the last but not least, which is going to be the rare Nobara. This one actually is just like if you're extremely mega down bad, like it's your only alternative to any heal recollection. Like if you don't have anything else, then you'll probably just use this one, shopping. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. But yeah, that's why it's there. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. It just heals you. I think it's like 15% heal to your character. But yeah, anyways, essentially, this is what I think about all the free-to-play recollections that are currently in the game, at least the ones that are of use. Obviously, there's some other free-to-play recollections, but they have like no use yet. And I don't know if they will, but if they do, you probably still shouldn't get rid of them. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, you want to keep these just in case, because if they do happen to do something like buff them or anything like that, you're going to be in a world of hurt if it actually becomes a top tier, memory. Anyways, I appreciate y'all boys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know your thoughts on it though. Peace.